What happens when the most famous man in the world wants to disappear? It's March 1970. Sebring, Florida. The 12 Hours of Sebring endurance race. One of the most grueling races in motorsport. 200 drivers, 50 cars, 12 hours of speed, heat, and chaos. At 9:45 a.m., a driver walks to car number 48. Porsche 908, orange and blue livery. He's wearing a full face, helmet. No one can see his face. The race program lists him as Harvey Mushman. Nobody's heard of Harvey Mushman. He has no racing history, no credentials, just a name on a list. But Harvey Mushman isn't real. He's Steve McQueen, the biggest movie star in the world, racing under a fake. Name because his studio forbade him to race. Because his insurance company threatened to drop him. Because everyone told him he was crazy to risk his life for something that didn't matter. What happened over those 12 hours would become Steve's most honest performance. Not on screen, but on a racetrack, where the only thing that mattered was speed. This is that story. I want in. The voice on the other end was Peter Revson, professional race driver, friend. They'd raced together before. Informal stuff, track days, nothing official. "Steve, you know the studio won't let you," Peter said. "Which is why I'm not asking them. They'll find out." "Not if I use a fake name?" Silence on the other end, then laughter. "You're serious. Dead serious. Sebring, 12 hours. I want a seat." Peter was quiet for a moment, thinking. "You know what you're asking? Sebring isn't a track day. It's 12 hours. In Florida heat, in March, cars breaking down, crashes. People die at Sebring, Steve." "I know." "And you still want in?" "Yeah." "Why?" Steve looked out the window, at his pool, his perfectly manicured lawn, the house that cost more than most. People made in a lifetime. The life he'd built that felt increasingly like a cage. "Because I need to do something real," Steve said. "Something that isn't movies. Something that isn't Steve. McQueen, the actor. Just driving. Fast. Against people who don't give a shit who I am." Peter sighed. "If your studio finds out, they'll sue me." "They won't find out." "If you crash, I won't crash." "Steve, I've seen you drive. You're good. But you're not professional level good. Sebring is different. I'll practice, I'll train. Whatever it takes. Just get me a seat." Another pause. Then, "There's a Porsche 908 available. Team entry. You'd be co-driving with me. We'd split the 12 hours, 6 hours each." "Perfect. I need a name for the entry form. Not Steve McQueen." Steve thought about it, looked at his desk, at a bottle of scotch, at a can of mushrooms from last night's dinner. Allie had left there. "Harvey Mushman," Steve said. "What?" "Harvey Mushman, that's the name." Peter laughed. "That's the worst fake name I've ever heard." "Exactly. It's so bad no one will believe it's fake." For the next 3 weeks, Steve trained. Early mornings at Riverside Raceway, private sessions, just him and the car and the track. Peter would come, sometimes, give him tips, show him racing lines, teach him things you don't learn driving on the street. "Endurance racing isn't about being fast," Peter said one morning. "It's about being consistent. Fast is easy. Anyone can be fast for a lap. But being fast for 6 hours? That's different. That's about discipline, patience, knowing when to push and when to preserve the car." "I can do that." "Can you? Because you're not exactly known for patience." Steve didn't argue. Peter was right. Patience had never been Steve's strength. He was all throttle, all attack, all the time. But he was learning. Slowly, How to manage tires, how to save fuel, how to read the car, feel when something was wrong before it became catastrophic. He crashed once. Week 2. Came into a turn too hot, lost the back end, spun, hit a tire barrier, not hard, but enough to bend the suspension. Peter ran over. You okay? Steve climbed out. Angry, not at Peter, at himself. Yeah. What happened? I got cocky. Thought I could take it faster than I could. That'll kill you at Sebring. The track doesn't forgive mistakes, especially at night. It won't happen again. It better not, because if you crash our car, I'm not explaining to the team why Harvey Mushman destroyed a $250,000 Porsche. By week 3, Steve was ready. Not great, but competent. Good enough to hold his own. Good enough not to. Embarrass himself. Good enough to be Harvey Mushman. Sebring was chaos. 50 race cars, 200 crew members, thousands of spectators. The paddock smelled like racing fuel and hot asphalt and sweat. The sound was overwhelming. Engines, air wrenches, people yelling. Steve kept his sunglasses on, hat pulled low, trying not to be recognized. He almost made it to the Porsche garage before someone spotted him. Holy shit, is that Steve McQueen? Steve kept walking, didn't acknowledge it. Hey, Steve, can I get an autograph? More people turned, started pointing. Within seconds, there was a crowd. Peter appeared, grabbed Steve's arm. Come on, quick. They ducked into the garage, closed the door. The crowd pressed against the windows, cameras flashing. So much for Harvey Mushman, Steve said. We'll make it work. Once you're in the car with the helmet on, no one will know. The officials know. But they won't say anything. As far as the world's concerned, you're just another driver. Steve walked to the car. Car 48. Orange and blue. Beautiful. Purposeful. Built for one thing. Going fast. He ran his hand along the bodywork, felt the rivets, the texture of the paint. This was real. This wasn't a movie. Car. This wasn't modified for cameras. This was the real thing. A team mechanic approached. Young guy, maybe 25. He looked at Steve, then at Peter. So it's true? Steve McQueen is really racing? His name is Harvey Mushman, Peter said. The mechanic grinned. Right, Harvey Mushman, got it. We're serious. If anyone asks, you don't know who he is. My lips are sealed, but man. Steve McQueen. In our car. This is insane. Steve looked at him. What's your name? Jimmy. Jimmy, I'm just another driver. That's it. I'm not here to be Steve McQueen. I'm here to race. Can you treat me like that? Jimmy nodded. Yeah, I can do that. Good. Then let's get to work. The start was at 10 a.m. Le Mans-style start. Drivers line up across from their cars. When the flag drops, they run to their cars. Get in. Start them. Race. Steve stood across from car 48, heart pounding, hands sweating inside his gloves. The Florida sun was brutal, already 85 degrees. It would be over 90 by noon. The flag dropped. Steve ran, got to the car, jumped in, no door, just climb over, strap in, 5-point harness, click, 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 click. Key already in the ignition. Turn it. Engine roars to life. First gear. Release clutch. Go. The track was chaos. 50 cars all trying to get through turn 1. Steve held his line. Stayed patient. Let the aggressive drivers crash into each other while he stayed clean. By turn 3, he was in 23rd position. Not bad, not great. But he had 12 hours, plenty of time. The car felt good, responsive. The engine note was perfect. The brakes were strong, Everything Peter had. Promised. Steve settled in, found his rhythm, started picking off positions. 23rd became 21st. 21st became 19th. He was racing, really racing. And nobody knew it was him. For 3 hours, Steve drove. No brakes, no stops except for fuel, just driving, lap after lap, turn after turn. The track had 17 corners. Steve memorized every one. Every bump, every patch of rough asphalt, every place where the car wanted to. Step out. The heat was insane. Inside the car, it was over 120 degrees. Steve's suit was soaked with sweat. His hands hurt from gripping the wheel. His neck hurt from the G-forces. But he'd never felt more alive. On lap 47, a Ferrari passed him going into turn 1. Steve let him go. Didn't fight it. The Ferrari was faster. Fighting would only hurt both of them. On lap 62, Steve passed a Corvette. Clean overtake on the back straight. The Corvette's engine was dying. Steve's was still strong. On lap 89, Steve came into the pits. The team swarmed the car, changed tires, added fuel. 45 seconds. Then Steve was gone again. Hour 3. Steve's stint was done. He brought the car in, climbed out. Peter climbed in. Steve collapsed against the garage wall. Couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Jimmy brought him water. Steve drank, poured the rest over his head. "How was it?" Peter asked before pulling on his helmet. "Perfect," Steve said. "Fucking perfect." Peter grinned, pulled down his visor, drove away. Steve watched the car disappear down pit lane, watched it accelerate, join the pack, become just another car in the race. And he smiled, because out there in that car, Steve McQueen didn't exist. There was only Harvey Mushman, driver number 48, fighting for position in a race that would never remember his name. And that was exactly what Steve wanted. At 7 p.m., Steve got back in the car. The sun had set. The track was dark except for the lights at the corners. The car's headlights barely cut through. The darkness. Everything was shadows and speed. This was the dangerous part. Night racing, where you couldn't see the bumps, couldn't judge distances. Where? One mistake meant hitting a wall at 150 miles per hour. Steve pushed the fear down, focused on the brake markers, the turn-in points, the racing line that Peter had, drilled into him. Lap 140. Steve was in 15th position now. The car was holding together. Engine still strong, brakes still working. They had a chance. Lap 160. A Porsche ahead of Steve spun. Right in front of him. No warning. Just suddenly sideways. Steve reacted instinctively, turned right, missed the spinning car by inches. His heart was in his throat, but his hands stayed steady. Lap 185. 2 hours left. Steve was exhausted. Every muscle hurt. His vision was blurring. But he kept going, because that's what you do. You push through, you finish. At 9:30 p.m., Steve came in for his final pit stop. Peter would take the car to the finish. Steve climbed out, could barely stand. Jimmy caught him. "You did good, Harvey," Jimmy said with a grin. "Real good." Steve nodded. Couldn't speak, just nodded. He sat in the garage, watched Peter drive the final stint, watched the clock count down. 2 hours, 1 hour, 30 minutes. At 10 p.m., the checkered flag dropped. Car 48 crossed the line in 13th place. Out of 50 starters, only 23 finished. They'd finished, they'd survived, they'd raced. There was no trophy for 13th place, no podium, no champagne, just a handshake from the team, a slap on, The back, a job done. The press swarmed the winners. Cameras everywhere. Interviews, fame. Steve stood in the shadows, watching. Invisible in his racing suit and helmet under his arm. Just another driver who'd finished the race. A reporter walked past, glanced at Steve. Didn't recognize him. Kept walking. Perfect. Peter walked over, exhausted, filthy, grinning. 13th place, Peter said. Not bad for Harvey Mushman's first race. Not good enough. We finished. That's what matters. Half the field didn't. Steve looked at the car. At the dents, the scratches, the oil leaks. It looked like it had been through a war. Because it had. When's the next race? Steve asked. Peter laughed. You're already thinking about next time? Yeah. Steve, your studio is going to kill you when they find out. Let them. This is worth it. This is real. Everything else is just pretending. Steve drove back to the airport alone. Rental car. 2 a.m. The highway was empty. He kept replaying the race in his mind. Every corner, every pass, every moment where he could have crashed. But didn't. 13 hours ago, he'd been Steve McQueen. Movie star, icon, the guy on magazine covers. For 12 hours, he'd been Harvey Mushman, nobody. Just a driver. Just a person trying to go fast and not crash. And those 12 hours felt more real than anything Steve had done in the last 10 years. He thought about his movies, about the characters he played, the heroes, the tough guys, the rebels. None of them were real. They were constructions, performances, illusions. But Harvey Mushman? Harvey Mushman was real. Harvey Mushman had driven 180 laps at Sebring, had finished 13th, had proven he could do something that had nothing to do with being famous. Steve smiled, kept driving. The Florida night stretched ahead. Dark, quiet, empty. And for once, Steve McQueen felt like he knew exactly who he was. The story of Harvey Mushman leaked eventually. Someone in the paddock talked. A reporter put the pieces together. Within a week, the world knew. Steve's studio was furious. His insurance company dropped him. His agent yelled at him for an hour on the phone. Steve didn't care. He'd done something real. Something that mattered. Something that proved he was more than just a face on a screen. He'd race again. Many times. Under his own name. At Le Mans. At other tracks. Sometimes he'd win. Sometimes he'd crash. Always he'd push himself to the limit. But that first race, at Sebring, as Harvey Mushman, that was the one that mattered most. Because that was the race where Steve McQueen stopped being a movie star and became exactly who he wanted to be. A driver, a racer, a person defined not by fame but by speed. And for 12 hours in March 1970, that was enough.